This reviewer discussion was recorded during the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. Without the labor of the writers and actors currently on strike, the works being covered here wouldn't exist. We fully support both the WGA and SAG-AFTRA in their fight for fair treatment and compensation against a system that continually denies them such. While a full boycott has not been called for, SAG-AFTRA has asked that everyone who does media about film and TV refrain from promoting struck content during this time. From what we can tell based on guidelines released, independent reviews do not constitute promotion of work, but critical assessment of a work of art. Any praise we give to these works should be seen purely as praise for the artists, writers, and actors who created it. If anything, the praise is emphasizing that the writers, actors, and other artists deserve more compensation because they are who make these works and our subsequent discussions possible. Additionally, this recording was not made using any studio-provided screeners or material. Do not support any studios during the strike.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Fake Nerds Watch for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2. I am Brandon T. McClure. With me on this trek through the stars is Ryan Eliopoulos.
Hello, we're setting our phasers to super fun this week.
And Sparkz Witty.
The scissoring salutes don't get any less uncomfortable.
Hey, you've officially said it out loud, so you've officially made it worse.
Yeah.
So audio listeners will probably not know, maybe unless I think you brought it up, that the two of you scissor each other with Vulcan
Excuse
salutes.
me, sir, we Spock each other.
Spock
A good
each other,
spocking.
sorry.
Come on, y'all. Please.
Spizzering.
Spizzer. Ooh.
I'll take Ryan's Spock anytime.
Well, we're here to talk about episode 5 of the second season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, titled Charades, directed by Jordan Canning, written by Henry Alonzo Myers and Catherine Lynn, who I just found out we'll see again in 2 episodes from now with the Strange New Worlds Lower Decks crossover episode.
Ooh.
So that should be fun. I think it's a tradition now that every 5th episode has to be a romp with Spock and T'Pring, but because last season, episode 5 was Spock Amok, which is the episode where they switch Katras.
Yeah.
So also Chapel.
So also Chapel, because Chapel was heavily featured in the episode as well. So what do we think about this one? What do you guys think?
I really love it, to be honest with you.
I also really love it. It's probably my favorite episode of the season.
I would agree. It's my favorite episode of the season as well so far. We're only halfway through the season, which is a bummer to say.
Yeah. We're still halfway. Hey, I'm a glass half full guy. We still got 5 more episodes.
I know, but 10 episodes is
with
short.
this quality, I will take this instead of, like six Secret Invasion episodes, 12 other episodes. Like, nah, I'll take a sweet 10, baby. Give me that 10.
But yes, quality 10.
This is my favorite episode of the season so far. It's a damn fun episode. I really enjoy that we open, because like the trailers kind of made me think this was going to be like a Spock centered episode, and from the trailers I knew this was going to be the episode where Spock becomes human. And so I was like, okay, well, this could be a Spock episode. But we open on Chapel's log entry, and I was like, oh, a Chapel episode. I'm into this. I'm happy about this. And then Spock's entry happens after that, and giving the impression that this is about the both of them. And I think it's wholly successful at doing that.
Yes.
In contrast to last week.
Yeah, it's in contrast to last week where like
Ortegas was shelved.
Yeah, where Ortegas is like, oh, she'll be the focus. I'm like, no, we're just gonna. Yeah, we talked about that last week. Yeah, but no, I really, really love this episode. Like we talk about every week, whether how much we like or dislike an episode. Like the cast sings, and this week, like the chemistry is just off the chains. When is it Gregory Peck or is that a son?
That's Ethan Peck. Is this one?
Ethan Peck. When his Spock is so good, but when he gets to just be a human being and like. Him just being a teenager was incredibly funny this entire episode. Like this is definitely like it's been a while since I've watched other Star Trek episodes, but like this might be like the funniest episode of Star Trek ever made. Like it is like the entire like this is like an entirely, besides like the good drama, like this is a comedy episode almost the entire way through, and like it hinges on his performance and the people who react around him, and it's perfect. It's so funny, and the emotion is there when you want it to be at the end. So like I was loving it. I was hooting and hollering the whole episode.
Nice. I'm really happy. I kind of wish we'd watch this one together.
Yeah, I didn't know it'd be so hooty.
When I was watching it last time, I'm like, oh damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this episode allowed Ethan Peck to prove how good his Spock is, because you can see Spock even in him giving him these human performances. It still feels like Spock, and Leonard Nimoy's Spock, to be specific. Like it doesn't feel like an impression of Leonard Nimoy, but I can see the connective tissue. Me knowing very little about Star Trek, I still know what Leonard Nimoy's Spock is like.
He's in those movies.
And I've seen Spock.
Yeah.
I know what Leonard Nimoy's Spock is like. And I think he captures him very well, to the degree where he knows how to be the character and how to connect to the character, even when he is traveling this far away from the character, at least in emotional performance.
Yeah, I think the episode sets up a really interesting dynamic between Chapel and Spock that was set up in the beginning, but we kind of take a back seat to it because so much happens in the next 4 episodes that Spock is avoiding Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of forced to be together on this shuttle mission because their two interests have intersected. This is a mission for Spock, but Chapel is trying to get into this fellowship, which we heard about again in the first episode.
Yes. I want to say we had just one weird moment with them when he was captain temporarily in the first episode, and that's it. Or am I misremembering?
because he has because she almost dies, and he has this kind of like freak out that she's about to die.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I want to highlight again just Ethan Peck's performance, because the other thing I think he does that, like, you've seen this done in a lot of science fiction and fantasy shows, where he's lost his mojo, we'll say. He's lost his Vulcan stuff, so he's very not playing himself the way he normally is, and he has to fake it. And when he's faking it, it doesn't feel like he's just being Spock again. I can feel the decisions of him as a character, as an actor, being the human pretending to be Vulcan.
Yes.
And I don't think that shines through a lot when they try and do that. Like, usually the person just kind of slips into the thing that they're doing all the time anyway.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was an amount of trying to capture it, but also like leaving the human performance present.
He is doing
all
like
his lines.
like 3 roles in this episode. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The I think the writing is so sharp in this episode, but also Peck's performance, as we've been praising the full time so far. I initially was curious, why did he have to learn to be Spock again? Why did he have to learn to be Vulcan again? And it was only upon the second time that I realized, that La'an says it. He's going through puberty. Essentially, he doesn't know how to handle these emotions, so it's very difficult for him to slip back into being a Vulcan Spock, because his emotions are just rampaging and just flowing through his body in a way that he's just never been capable of handling.
I also like that he has a bit where he elaborates on, for a moment, that human emotions, now that he's fully engaged with them, separate from Vulcan, he's like, they're different. Like, we'll say they're both emotions. They're basically different things. Yeah. Like, they serve similar purposes, but functionally what a Vulcan feels is both stronger, so it needs to be suppressed, but also different. And so he doesn't actually know how to rein in human emotions, because he's like, to him, these are basically not emotions. These are whole new things that he's like, this is not what I've had to gauge before. And I find that fascinating.
It's true.
Because I think that's a really good take to put on it, that like, it's not just like that, Vulcan suppress emotions and humans, like, that's been so simplistic of how mostly human Starfleet characters have explained the difference between Vulcans and humans for a long time. And this is deepening it to say, like, realistically, they're like a person encountering the color purple and a person encountering the color green and saying they're the same thing. And they're not. And they're both engaging with it differently.
That's a really good point, Sparkz. I want to shout out real quickly, the past 5 episodes I've been like, where's Sam Kirk? Welcome back to the show, Sam Kirk.
He's making messes is what he's doing.
He has probably the moment, because we're talking so much about Spock, like, I just want to highlight probably the funniest moment in any Star Trek show is in this episode when Spock just attacks him like, I will break you, Kirk. Don't test me.
Because of a plate.
Funniest thing.
Which I feel like
wait till after the meeting.
I'm happy it's Sam. It feels like it is there to have that particular pull moment to look at where he says, like, because you can see him saying it to Kirk as we know him. And so like it feels like that's why they put him in the position. Is just this outrage is going to be really funny. Yeah. I agree. It's really good. On that note, like just the montage sequences that they do very effectively of Spock pre being changed and post of all the things he does, all the people he hangs out with and how he interacts with them.
The laugh
is done really, really well. It's all effective. And to highlight that, also Chapel's montage that we get at the beginning too, of what she's doing with her life, like doing the boxing with Uhura, having her friends quizzing her in all her interactions. That's how we move through the montage. Just really effective montage storytelling happens like 3 or 4 times in this episode. And it's always good. It's always developing on the characters really, really well. And I mean like our core 2, Chapel and Spock, but also the surrounding people. It gets everybody involved in a fun way. Like it's really nice to just watch Una hang out with the girls. I know like it's not a major character beat, but just watching her loosen up and laugh makes me like Una a little more. So like it's just really effective to have them all like that. And boy, there's nothing better than all 4 of them later trying to tell Spock what he sounds like and him not believing them.
You sound just like that.
Do I really sound like that? I love when Ortega's is like, notice I raise the eyebrow and don't, and La'an just points like, yeah, you got to do that. You do that.
Right. Yeah.
But you make up a good point because so much in episodic storytelling, you can kind of forget that these characters are actually on a journey because for the most part in episodic storytelling, they always revert back to one. And then we go into the next adventure. But what I really appreciate about Strange New Worlds is that not only is Una there with the crew, loosening up, laughing, but so's La'an.
Right.
Like you can see how episode 2 and episode 3. Yeah, episode 2 and episode 3 have changed these 2 characters because they're interacting with the crew in a way that's more, that's less stoic. They're interacting with the crew as friends. They're allowing themselves to laugh. They're allowing themselves to loosen up, and it's really nice to see that character progression.
Right, and friendships. You know, I think friendships being so present and continuous and growing amongst all the cast is a really. That's a penny in the pocket.
That's kind of
Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, like that's kind of what this whole episode is. It starts with, you know, one of the most like valuable things that we have, downtime. So like this is a very much like, even at the end, like the big stressful thing is an engagement dinner. Right. Like it's not, we're not trying to save the universe or anything, right? I think all the interaction with the Chapel stuff is just so great. You know, like we all love Chapel. We all love church, as I called it last week. We all love the will they, won't they. And, you know, not to like get too far at the end, but like there is the thing of like, oh, the original series is there. You know, we can't have them getting married and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't even care, to be honest. Like what happens? I'm just happy. I'm not going to watch that original show. Sorry. I'm past that. I'm past that point in my life. It's great. It's there. I'm happy that this gets to happen here. And like, this is a wonderful journey of characters growing, learning to love. It's just, it's lovely.
So you bring up a really good point about Chapel. Within her montage, her beginning montage, is actually a clever little nod to her future fiance. They taught the person that she is being quizzed on, she in fact gets engaged to in the future. So I really wonder, did they do that to set up that this character is going to show up in the show?
Yeah.
Sure. And are we going to see that? And that's why the Spock and Chapel thing doesn't work out, because she gets engaged to this other guy.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like, for like, let's say the show runs 5 seasons, hopefully longer. Like, there's no reason to think that they can't have a wonderful relationship and something makes it end. And like it naturally comes to an end. So like we can still have the original timeline stuff happen, and we actually got to have this cute little ship.
And it would actually add to the original series Chapel and Spock relationship in a way that I didn't expect, because then it makes it so that when this person, I'm sorry, spoiler alert for a 6-year-old show that dies, when this dude dies, Chapel reverts back to Spock, but it's too late. And that's why she's fawning over Spock, because she's missing what they used to have. And I'm like,
Sure.
that actually makes that storyline more engaging to me. It's not
Right.
great. It's still not great, but Strange
Well,
New Worlds
because
has
it's written in the
enhanced it.
60s.
Right. But Strange New Worlds has
She's
enhanced
not
it.
given the best meat on those bones.
Yeah. So like I can see a path now where I couldn't in the first season, because I was like, I have to be like, this Chapel and Chapel we meet in the original series are two different characters. Yeah. But now I can see the path, the vision, as it were, of making the Chapel in the original series a more likable character, frankly.
And we've talked about this when we talked about the first season together, Brandon, but like I'm glad that they did a take where they're like, we could make this character better retroactively. And I do think that's the path they're taking. What I will admit this episode did that bums me out, just because I know where things end up, thanks to you, is that I'm not very hot on T'Pring anymore. Yeah. Like, and I'm just, and it's partially the episode, but I'm like, just the chemistry is too good between Ethan Peck and the actor playing Chapel. Yeah. And I'm having a hard time being on board with Spock and T'Pring anymore.
It bums me out that Spock, like these people like take a break and then they get back together, and like Spock's just in an unhappy marriage that we don't know about. It's kind of sad.
Well, they never get married.
They don't get married. Okay.
She leaves him for Stawn, who we also met in the first season.
Okay. Oh, so they get back together, but then they break up again.
Yeah, and a really elaborate breakup too, because it's really fun. So it's actually, in context of this, it's really funny, because so this is just, we need to take a break. So then they take a break and they're effectively broken up. But fast forward to the original series, obviously they get back together. They have to. The original series, T'Pring decides to break up with Spock again by exploiting his Ponfar and making Spock believe that he had killed Captain Kirk. And that's her breakup.
That's such T'Pring energy.
And I was thinking about that. I was like, man, she had your next breakup's going to be really elaborate, girl.
You didn't tell me that before. So now knowing that, I'm like, all right, I get why you make T'Pring unlikable. Yeah. But it's there now. I'm like, I don't really want to see much more of Spock and T'Pring together, because I don't think it's this is one of those things where being a prequel show just is a little bit of a bummer, because like, we'll have to eventually reset back.
Maybe not in the show though. We don't have to see T'Pring again.
Maybe or maybe right at the end, like it'll be the second to last thing the show does.
I'm back. Do you have your ears back?
This is Ross and Rachel, but they never end up together.
Oh, sure.
I will say that on the note of T'Pring, I actually really like the actress who plays her. I think
more accurately than this is Joey and Rachel. Sorry. Yes, the actor playing Chapel is excellent.
I mean T'Pring.
Sorry, T'Pring. She's good.
I think she's really good. I really like her. And I do actually really like T'Pring as a character in the show. And her inclusion in this episode actually kind of makes me endeared to her a little bit more, because you can kind of see the Vulcan mask fall a little bit when it's involving her mother, because she's just so done with her mother. And she has a great line where it's like, yes, as fascinating as it is that some civilizations eat their young, which I just thought was really funny.
Spock, which was the problem.
Yes. That's a good moment.
I loved her dad, because that dude
Holy
was like,
shit.
yo, this is a pretty nice house. Actually, it's a house sucks. Yo, this house sucks.
Yeah.
Yo, actually, this dish is pretty good. Actually, it's underwhelming. You know what? This is awful.
But because he's Vulcan, what it is that it comes out as, oh, yes, I agree with everything you just said. Yeah. I just didn't notice before.
Yeah.
And like, one of my favorite things is that at the end of the whole ritual dinner, he turns to Pike and he's like, is there any more of that delicious food?
Is my wife around?
Right, yeah.
I love her dad so much. He's my favorite character in the episode. Because like, and Pike loves him too, right? Like, there's the bit where he's like, do you have any more? And Pike just goes, I got you.
Yeah,
my man.
I got you. I really like her parents. I think they're very well cast. I think they're very good Vulcans in general. Sure. The dad just showing excitement at the food is really funny to me.
This poor cuckolded man.
Oh my God.
is like,
Oh no.
he's just like he's there.
Stuck in
That
a
is
marriage. Yeah.
That man just wants to be happy. That man would assimilate into Earth culture so hard.
That's like the tastiest thing he's had in 20 years. And his wife said, "You cannot have that." You know what, honey? You're right.
And she goes, she smells it like, it's over salted too. And it goes, oh yeah, I didn't notice before.
Yeah.
And Pike's like, no, it makes sense because the starship, got to cook it a
Fermenting
little
it
bit
hotter.
differently.
Yeah.
By the way, the return of Captain Pike's beautiful lime green tunic. I love that thing so much. It's slightly altered from the first season, a gold trim around the brim this time around. I really like that thing.
Well, these uniforms, they're always altering. They're always changing. They're always improving. And then you'll hit the original series, and then they're kind of going to take a step backwards. And
yeah, I'm waiting for the episode where their badges become a patch.
Yeah,
sure. All right, so Spock gets turned into a human being. I really like the reason why, and I like the people and/or things involved. I love yellow. Can we talk about yellow? Oh my God! Don't talk about blue though. Fuck blue.
The line, one of them had mixed instructions.
Yeah,
killed me.
I love they're just like so nonsense. Like we didn't hear a complaint after the order. Like business as usual. Like they're so just like they're business aliens, and I'm like that's awesome. That's such a cool approach.
This is the most like wrinkle in time type aliens I've seen in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Or in a show like this in general. They're so like, we kind of speak your language, but we're essentially speaking a different language.
Yeah.
Like we'll use your words, but we're not saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Our friend is like different than your friend.
Yeah.
And then our friend has so many connotations. Don't start crying, church. Oh my God.
She's at a church again.
I know.
I really like these aliens. They're a really cool idea. I love the bureaucraticness of their whole civilization, I guess. Like per contract instructions, we fixed up your people and we sent them back, but one of them had mixed instructions. That mixed instruction thing's killed me. And I love Pike dealing with them. Pike in general, by the way, MVP of the episode, because I think Anson Mount does really well in drama specifically, but man, does he love to do comedy, and you can tell because he's such a good facial actor.
Sure. Yes.
Like when he's looking at when like they're like, "Hey, I've got visual," and he looks at Una and is like, "Oh, first contact with an alien species. Let's do this on screen."
This is so exciting. What the hell am I looking at? Is that a screensaver?
Why are you not corporeal?
Yeah.
The show, by the way, continues to look beautiful because that vortex into their space is awesome.
Yes. It reminded me of the planet from season 1 where they had to sing to line up the harmonics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It reminded, and it looked just as pretty too. Like how those visuals were done, they were done just as well here.
And when we went to go visit them in their crystallized city, they were on that fake volume, but like it didn't bother me as much. It didn't bother me as much because it's like fourth dimensional nonsense instead of like just being out on a plane.
There's an etherealness to the volume. I think what kind of cute. I think the mistake of the volume is to constantly make things a circle. And I wish that they wouldn't. I wish that the volume's just not like you can't really like move it, right? Like once you make the screens, you can't like reset them. I think the next step should be to be able to like section off screens and use them more like a green screen and less like a circle area for people to just kind of stand in.
I'll be honest, like I don't really think about the volume very much most of the time because I'm very much a person who like I take a very stage theater approach, which is like if I can be sucked in the story, I kind of don't care how shoddy some things will look or vice versa. But I notice when things look really good. And what I really liked about the volume in this one specifically for when they go into their place is really how well the transitioning colors that are moving around specifically because of yellow and blue passing in and out are reflecting off the actors.
The kaleidoscope.
The way that they're reflecting off the actors in particular, I'm like, you can't do that without the volume. And it looks really good. It makes them look like they're really there. And I really like when that kind of stuff happens. Again, similar to the music episode. That stood out to me then too, that like the way color reflected off the actors depending on where they were standing was really effective because it made me feel like they were there.
Yeah.
Jess Bush, who plays Chapel,
Right.
she was talking about it on the Ready Room how she finds the volume very dizzying, specifically in this episode because there's no like thing to focus on.
Right.
You have like a reflective floor and then this thing, but like on an episode of like what we saw last week, where you have like a castle that you can look at the distance, you just have the spinning wall that's constantly moving with the camera. And apparently like they did 15 hours in it and they were just like ready to be done with the whole thing.
I believe it. It's like an Interstellar.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So Spock's mother is in this episode.
Yeah.
Amanda
Grayson. Love Winona Ryder.
She is a carryover from Star Trek Discovery. She was delightful in that season, so I'm actually really glad they brought back the actress. Because I thought she was really great in this episode. I think Amanda Grayson just in general is a really good character across all the entire franchise. Winona Ryder, as you mentioned, I think is great in the role for what she's given. I don't think she's given a lot to do, but she has some really good moments with Spock that I think really sing. The original actress who played her is wonderful. She's only in an episode in a movie, but I still think she's wonderful. But this actress, once again, kind of portrays the warmth of a mother who is struggling to be a human on Vulcan, with a son who wants to be pure Vulcan.
Yeah.
But she loves him unconditionally. And I love that. I love that they constantly keep playing that role.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that she seems like she is a really complex person. And like with as little screen time as I was given, I got a lot back. Because this is a human in an unfamiliar world who has spent many years now. She has a son, like the thing you just said was her son resenting the human part of him and whatnot. Like that's tough. That must be really tough. But she's also navigated the way like through it, and like the way that she still is like really strong, and like she is strong for Spock and like doing all that. Like I thought that was really good. Like I agree. I think she was really really good in this episode. And like it's a strong little like man, like what a tough little lady like trying to do all this. And like for herself and for her kid, like it's great,
right? And not only that, but like this is mostly a comedic and fun episode. But when it got to the part where Spock revealed that he had been human the whole time, I was like, I didn't hate the beat, but I was like, oh, okay, this is the direction we're going to go with this, where he reveals to Pring's mom that he was human during this, and it's kind of like a haha, F you.
Yeah.
But then when it turned into I'm doing this to stand up for my mom and make my mom know I recognize what she's been through now. And they have that scene after together where he's explaining, like, seeing it through your eyes, I understood what you had done to you that I never had done to me.
Yeah.
And that made all of that feel really worth doing. I'm really glad they went for that. And I didn't expect something like that to happen in this episode, let alone having that emotional pitch along with Chapel's when she's in the other place. Just like two really strong, important, emotional pillars in this episode that could have gone away without doing them, to be honest with you.
This could have just been a fun episode and I probably still would have loved it. But like it was able to tug at the heartstrings and like be really dramatic and like have really good, excellent, character stuff. It's great.
I really want to highlight Amanda's first scene. Because it comes off of this really, really pure scene with Spock being like, sometimes I don't cry in the shower with Chapel, and Pike says, "Your mother is beaming aboard," and he comes in with the beanie.
Oh my god!
These
are regulations.
Yeah, they're regulations.
Like just like, I have one too.
I got the same one. What a wingman.
He's so good at like just defending Spock in this moment. Like I said, like he's got such great like facial acting in this movie where he's just kind of like, yeah, I've got one too, and he's just and he's got but like Amanda knows something's wrong, and Spock can't quite play the injured Vulcan role very well. Especially towards his mother. It's very difficult because he loves his mother and he constantly wants to hide this part of him. And so she clicks on that something far worse has happened to Spock than just a shuttle accident.
Right.
He singed his eyebrows.
And so I really like the reveal, and she's just kind of like, so I'm going to have to teach you how to lie. And we're just going to have to hope that works.
I loved it when it was like him in like the chair and then like the whole girl squad in front of him, and I'm like, hell yeah, teach Spock some stuff. I love it.
It's such a good trope that I think they use really well of the postponing it's not going to work, so let's deceive them. And like this is a trope we see in tons of shows. Tons of sci-fi shows do it. Star Trek's done it before. So like, but like when done really well, it's a trope that really sings. And I think that in this episode, it really works because of the supporting cast around Ethan Peck, the way Ethan Peck is playing it, and yeah, I just think it works really well in this episode, and I love Amanda's performance.
On top of that, I think they made a smart decision to decide that like the mind meld is just something you can't fake.
Yes.
Yes. And like there are limits to how much you can pass something like that off, and that became too deep and too personal and not something you can just pretend. And so it becomes like a limiter on how long they can get away with the charade. Yeah. And I thought that was a really smart decision to draw a line on like you can fake a lot of Vulcan stuff.
Yeah.
This is not one of them.
I think one of the biggest laughs I got, he's talking to La'an, and then he kind of gives her like he kind of looks her up, and he's like, I'm feeling things, and she's like, oh no.
And when she
no,
and she moves into him, and he gets scared. Yeah,
you need to chill out, my guy. Slow it down a little bit. Like that made me laugh because like, oh wait, are you hot? And she's like, Spock, we are not doing this. Yeah. I thought that was really good.
But his feelings towards Chapel are still so complicated. But I just remembered I want to highlight like when Pike asks him, so how do you feel? And he's like, I feel angry, and I feel this, and I feel that, and I feel hungry. And Benga's like, hey, we're gonna do everything we can to get you better. It's like, I feel grateful. I really feel grateful that you're trying to help me.
Yeah. It is. I think it is so sweet of Chapel that like Spock had his like genes like universally changed, and she's just in like a lab with like beakers and shit. Like, I'm gonna replace his Spock genes, and I'm like, man, good for you for trying this hard, because like there's no way you were doing that.
Not only that, but like that they steer completely 100% away from the shitty trope, which would have been you would have had a fleeting moment, but a moment where Chapel considered not doing it.
Oh, sure.
Because it would have got him trapped as a human. Oh, which would have meant the marriage would fail.
And she would have been greedy about it.
Exactly. And they didn't even kind of
She's a better person than that. Yeah.
Not only that, they have her like completely feeling like responsible and acknowledging he's not the person that he is without this.
And
and that's, I love him for all of him.
Yeah.
And not just this.
He's easier to talk to, and she says all of like these positive things.
She admits how there's a lot of positives, but it's not him.
It's not him,
Not fully.
Yeah. And I love the way that Yellow, again, get Blue out of here. Blue doesn't understand. Yellow is like, what does that mean? Like, you need a connection. Like, what is he your friend? Which everyone's like, stay, you love him. Woo! Yeah. All the girls in the back.
Ortegas and Aurora. Yeah. I really, really like that bit. I'm glad that they pivoted completely away from even engaging with that idea and having her have survivor's guilt, as she said. And she doesn't even know up to this point that Spock diverted all the shields to protect her.
Yeah.
And she finds that out later. And I think that's really sweet. But like, I'm so glad they didn't go that way, because everything Brandon's told me about Chapel in the original series sounds like exactly the character they would have written to do just that.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that's not here at all. I think it makes her, it's frankly what makes her an endearing and compelling character who I want to end up with Spock, because she makes all these choices that are like, these are the good I care about a person for who the person is choices.
Yeah.
I didn't quite realize I wanted an episode like this, but watching Chapel, Ortegas, and Uhura on the shuttle and be together, just like talking and being a good dialogue together and just being friends together, ride or die together. I watched this and I was like, I'd watch the whole episode of just the three of them in a shuttle. Not
just the three of them. Take Una. Like, we need a girls' mission.
Yeah, let's do it.
Take Una and Carol Kane for chaos.
Yeah.
She's a wild card. Give me a girls' mission episode. I'd love to see it.
Oh my god, I want that so bad now. Yeah, I really love like Ortega's being like, I don't think we should fly into this thing. And they're like, and she even like thinks like, why am I the one talking us out of this?
No, yeah. It's like, you're asking me, the crazy pilot, if I want to not do this crazy maneuver into a portal? Like, my vote, baby. Yeah, great squad, love them.
She's apparently a Jurassic Park fan because she says, "Hold on to your butts."
Oh,
Yeah.
I
I clocked it.
Very happy.
It's still popular hundreds of years later.
We were talking about like the continuation of character beats and arcs and things that we've had established going into the episodes, and I just wanted to highlight that I really like at the beginning of the episode the elevator moment where Spock and Chapel are there together, and M'Benga is super awkward because we've established now that M'Benga can read Spock's body language and knows exactly how he feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when he steps off, he's just like, holy shit.
Chapel also has to do this interview. That's her kind of arc in the episode, is that she has this interview that is coming up for this archaeological medicine kind of thing happening on Vulcan. And she's denied it because she didn't plagiarize. And I just think that's really funny. That Vulcans demand that, this paper is right, so copy this paper.
Right,
that's
you
how
should
you
have
learn.
it committed. Yeah.
It's again, it's the logical thing of like, you should have just memorized the thing instead of be artistic about it. Like that is actually really funny. Like, you didn't just copy word for word. What's wrong with you? Like that, Vulcans. That's great.
It's efficient the way it was. You have become less efficient by trying to work around it.
I think I love her thing of like first she gets like rejected, and then like or what's the arc like because she gets a call back.
She doesn't get outright rejected. They're just not very impressed with the essay.
That's right. We'll call you back.
She says, "Well, look at my field experience," because I think that's the thing that really makes me stand apart. And they said, "Oh yeah, we'll look at it." You get to the end of the episode, and they're like, "Nah, maybe next year if you really feel like you gotta."
I'm an alien,
and she's like, "I've done cooler shit than you could possibly imagine today."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, what'd you do?" And she's like, "Read about it in my report."
That was a serve. That was an educational serve.
She's gonna publish a paper. She's like, read about it in my paper later this year. I was like, yeah, go, girl.
I love it. For a second, Brandon, when you first mentioned that guy that she gets engaged to, I thought you meant this guy.
Oh no,
I thought you meant the mean Vulcan. I'm like, that's a look.
We did meet the guy she gets engaged to, but he ended up being a robot, so it wasn't actually him.
LMD.
That original show is wild, guys. I kind of miss. I kind of miss 60s sci-fi because it was all about like giant amoebas and space and Abraham Lincoln flying through space in a chair. And I'm like,
that's why Doctor Who will always be magical, because like whether it's 60 years ago or now, they got like
just
throw some rubber shit on the
screen.
Yeah, sure. Like hell yeah,
do whatever you want.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think that they play really well with the bounds of what Star Trek allows for this time. To be kind of kooky but functional. It's something I was thinking about while I was watching the episode, is that Star Trek is generally very good about this, but like obviously Strange New Worlds has been excellent about it, where it should be more complicated than it is to put the Vulcan DNA back in Spock. It shouldn't just be something she's able to go there and magically come back with a gun thing that she can just inject him with, like that she'd either have to bring him or something, all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't matter. Like the semantics are not important as long as the character beats for the story are important. So like it doesn't matter how easily she can repair it, or it matters the things she had to say to get there. And it matters the things he went through on his journey back to that point. And like the semantics of how he gets fixed, that's not the part. Like, who gives a shit if it's kind of like, wait, how'd she? Nobody cares. That's not what's important.
Yo, man,
I'm glad that they don't focus on that.
I saw a character named Yellow that was the color of blue. So like, I'm just saying, like if people have issues with kind of thing, I'm like, oh man, open your horizons.
That's what I think a lot of Trek fans who are opposed to these shows. I want to be careful about my words because not all of them are right-wing bigots, but like people who are opposed to the newer Star Trek shows kind of get hung up on these details that even past Star Trek shows didn't care about. Because you're absolutely right, Sparkz. Like Star Trek has always been more about the character dramas than they have been about the allegory, more about the character drama, more about things like that than they have about the science. But so many fans get so hung up on trivia and science and all these things like, oh well, the original Enterprise could only travel at warp 7. But in the original show, they would travel at warp 14 all the damn time. But the next series would establish that warp 10 is the cap. You can't go past that. But in that same damn show, they do warp 12, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. Never mattered.
But like, and it's just it's a pitfall that a lot of other shows will fall into, right? Where like once you set up something like this, writers will, not that these episodes are bad necessarily outright, but for this, but like they'll get very bogged down in like, this would mean Spock has to leave the dinner, has to go on the shuttle, they have to come back and get him, take him to the space so that he can be, you think too much about how the science you've created would work to do it, and you get bogged down in these things that would ruin so much of the character stuff that's being done in the episode.
Yeah.
And this particular episode, I think, highlighted that really well, but this is true of the entire show, and this is true of most of Star Trek. Like, you know, complaints about last episode aside, for what we had for it, like, I'm glad it didn't get too bogged down in like, how do the memories retain it?
Yeah,
it's like it's the meteor thing, it's in the helmets and in the castle.
Keep it simple.
It's not the important part of the episode. And like, even there, like, that's not the thing that needed to be fixed to make the episode good. Right. You know, like over explaining that stuff is not the thing that makes Star Trek good or this kind of sci-fi good. It's the characters interacting with it that makes it good. It's the fact that like when she goes to ask for help, she has to explain what her relationship to Spock is. Mm-hmm. That's the important part about how she cures him.
True.
The part about how she gets the exact stuff in the science to come back and do it, that doesn't matter.
See, I thought what was going to happen was, because it's like some like fourth dimensional being, his ears were just going to like they would pop off and there's a and he's just like, I guess I'm back to normal now. Like,
I'm so glad they found a way to explain like doing the makeup ears like they do for the show. Mm-hmm. Because they don't want to put anything in his body because they're not sure what they're going to have to put in later. Yep. So they're like, well, we're just going to go prosthetics. Go old school. Just, we have the genetic thing. We could just like change your ears.
I like the kind of like, here's what the prop department made this week.
Right. Yeah.
Spock, famously, all Vulcans are vegetarians. So it's really funny that he just smells bacon and just goes crazy for it.
Eats so much he gets nauseous. I get it.
I really like. I want to go back to Pike real quickly because I think there's so much that Anson Mount does in this episode that I just thought was laugh out loud. There's a moment where he tries to leave the transporter room, and the door closes on him, and he just like pauses. It's like looks at it like, "Is this gonna open?" And it's just really funny because like. It kind of feels like it was a blooper they left in. That the doors just wasn't going to open. And he's just like, am I stuck here now? And there's a bit where he's got the tray, right? And then, oh, no, we got to talk about why this episode's called Charades.
Oh, yeah, Charades.
Which is that in order to stall, Pike says, well, we got to do a human ritual now. And Amanda's like with him. Like Amanda and Pike are like, yeah, a human ritual, which is, and Pike's like, charades.
Yeah.
And they both look so disappointed in Pike. Like, even Pike's like, really? That's the best I got.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. Good job.
Yeah.
The bit where he's just like, so if it's 2 syllables, I say 2 words.
So it's a sacred word. Sounds like ear.
And he's just ear. And Pike's like, come on, dude. I think Anson Mount shines in this episode as such a brilliant comedic actor, and it's so nice because like one of the things I like about Star Trek in general is how different every episode can be, and allowing a show to be this kind of episodic show again allows you to do the silly. You know, we talked about a lot last season. Sparkz and I remember the episode The Elysium Kingdom. That's a silly ass episode where the Enterprise becomes a fantasy world when everyone's all these different characters. Mm-hmm. And like, you can't do that on a show like Discovery or Picard. But you can do that with a show like Star Trek The Next Generation or Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And that's what I think the beauty of doing an episodic Star Trek show is, because you can have these silly episodes and they still are just as important and the stakes are just as high as Brian has mentioned. the stakes of this dinner needs to go well are just as high as this meteor is about to hit this planet.
You're so right, because like what I'm valuing in like Strange New Worlds, what I valued in the Orville is the same thing that I valued when I was watching not Star Trek but Farscape, because like Farscape runs because Star Trek ran first.
True.
And they also have the same like nature of things can be goofy as hell sometimes and they can be serious as hell other times. And I think that's vital for these kinds of shows. And I think like, not that you can't have a good Picard or what have you of being more serious, I guess. But I think having the balance of the lighter times with the darker times is what makes like Star Trek so malleable, so able to be engaged with. Like, so it's always kind of feels okay if something in Star Trek doesn't work for you, because there's usually 8 other things that do.
That's
everyone.
That's the interesting thing about like when Discovery came out. It's like, and again, I have not watched a lot of Discovery. I watched the first episode 5 years ago. But that was more like narrative, like not so much episode of the week. So like, if you go to Star Trek for the episode of the week, like, and you don't like one episode, like you just said, you can watch the next episode. If you don't like episode 1 of Discovery, you don't like episode 2 of Discovery, that's your show. That is the show.
Well, and like, I think this is what happened with New Trek. Sorry to kind of analyze for a moment, Brandon, but like Picard and Discovery are both born out of the idea of chasing prestige television and HBO.
Yeah.
And Strange New Worlds feels like, not to give too much credit, but it does feel like it's confident it can exist because the Orville succeeded.
Yeah.
Sure. And I spotlight that only because I do think like having the Orville out there proving you can do serious and silly side by side.
That's true.
Is what made them feel like, okay, maybe we can engage with classic Star Trek style.
And I did,
one of these shows.
I did watch the first season of the Orville because I was like, I want like good old Star Trek episode of the week, fun Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, there's room in Star Trek for the Dominion War, for example, which dictated most of the last half of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but also within that war was an episode where Sisko and his team had to go into the holodeck and do a heist to save a holographic Las Vegas hotel from being taken over by the mafia. Like that's really silly and really fun, and it's one of the best episodes of the whole show. And it allowed Star Trek being that kind of malleable was so important. And Discovery and Picard, as Sparkz rightfully said, we're chasing that prestige streaming television idea of these shows every episode needs to be in service of the overarching plot that needs to constantly be moving. We can't do silly because we have to set up the next episode. We have to set up the next episode, which is all in service to whatever story we're trying to do here, whatever mystery we're trying to solve here. And Strange New Worlds is not concerned with that. Neither is Lower Decks. To Lower Decks' credit, I don't want to take away credit from Lower Decks because it's also a episodic TV show,
right?
And far sillier. But but you're allowed to have this kind of malleable Star Trek again, and it's really nice to have. But like I said, like real quickly, Sparkz, this season, Strange New Worlds, I like the first season more so far. I've liked a couple of episodes here, but as a whole, the season has been a little lackluster for me. But that doesn't mean that next week can't knock it out of the park, which in fact it did, because last episode I was not crazy about that episode, but I loved this episode, so it can do that.
And writing that tone and embracing the style and spirit of where the original series was, even as it is injecting, I think, more seriality and more narrative overlays for characters, because like we've talked about, these characters feel like they're consistently growing, their relationships are deepening, and they're carrying the things that we are supposed to remember about them from the previous episodes. It's just not in a way where like you are detrimentally hurt most of the time by not having seen the previous episode. And if you are, they tell you pretty well in the recap what's important for probably should have gone back to to remind yourself of. But the fact that it balances that tone so well is the reason why Lower Decks characters can show up in the show, and that doesn't feel like it's breaking the show to do, because that kind of silliness is allowed here.
Yeah. It's kind of like what we talked about with like She-Hulk, right? She-Hulk was the first MCU show where it felt like I could just put on an episode one day and just be able to watch that episode with no need to rewatch the entire series. Very much the same way of Strange New Worlds. If I want to just watch the episode with Captain Angel, which I really do, I will just put that episode on, and that's just an episode I can watch one day. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of this kind of episodic television. That's why this show is so successful, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm glad they found that really good marriage between
Marriage.
letting our characters develop over time, but not feeling utterly beholden to driving their narrative arcs every single episode.
yes.
I think what they do really well, Ortega's factor previous episode aside, is balance the crew. Like, they've been very good on this show overall of giving us a lot of good moments with all of the crew, whether that's them getting their focal episodes or them getting just like prominent featuring parts continuing their story in other people's focal episodes. Again, Ortega's previous episode aside.
And I just want to, you already mentioned it, but I just want to reiterate it because I made it a point of that episode. After the Una episode, I was like, I hope this isn't the Una episode and then we don't see it the rest of the season. I do believe that she is interacting more in a friendly way with the entire crew. Same with La'an and stuff. So like, while it might not be like big narrative stuff, it is character stuff that like if you are paying attention, it is there.
You're so right because like looking at both of their episodes happening, 2 and 3 this season, respectively, and then getting to this episode where we're really seeing them in a way we didn't spend as much time with them in the previous episode. Both of them are now very presently laughing and engaging, and we're not seeing them isolating themselves the same way we were before.
They're homies,
and that is subtly present but directly there. There's a reason why we haven't seen Una and La'an in the girl hangout gang prior to this moment. It's because things have changed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
The girl hangout gang and Spock. What is Spock doing there when he's just a Vulcan?
Learning to lie.
Because when they're like having like his social duties for this downtime where he's learning how to cook and he's like Ortega's Una Chapel, not Ortega's Una, La'an and Uhura are having lunch together, and Spock is there, and I was just kind of wondering, like, what are you doing here, dude?
There is
read the room.
If he can't be with Pike and Mbenga's busy, these are his friends.
That's true. That's a fair point. You got me there.
This is a praisingly largely female cast, so he's got to hang out with the girls.
Yep,
which is great. I love it for him.
I really love the cast in the show. I want to real quickly kind of go back and highlight a moment that I put in my notes, which is I think Sparkz tried to was highlighting it too, which is when Spock takes off his ears, and he does so to defend his mother because T'Pring, which is T'Pring's mother, says that being half human was a disadvantage. Having a human mother was a disadvantage. And that was actually something that I really liked from the Star Trek 09, where when he's accepted into the Vulcan Science Academy, they say it's truly remarkable that you were able to accomplish so much despite your disability, your disadvantages, referring to his human mother.
Yeah.
And he declines to go to the Vulcan Science Academy and instead goes to Starfleet. That felt very much in tone as something I really liked about Winona Ryder and Zachary Quinto's relationship that I'm glad is carried over to Ethan Peck, and I forgot the actress's name, but she's wonderful. I love her.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, and I think that the T'Pring also the Vulcan ritual is ridiculously mean, but because you have to tell people what they're doing wrong, and like Amanda is just like she doesn't want to say too many bad things to T'Pring, and T'Pring is like all too ready to attack Spock,
giving her eyes. You talk shit to my daughter.
like she wants Amanda. T'Pring is like telling Amanda, say something worse.
Yeah.
But one thing I really thought was interesting is that T'Pring, Spock's hardly the first Vulcan to join Starfleet. He's not even the second. There's many Vulcans. We saw 2-3 episodes ago.
Right.
So like, but T'Pring feels that by joining Starfleet, Spock has abandoned Vulcan, has abandoned his people. I find that so interesting. The idea that Vulcan and Earth have been allies for longer than the Federation has been around, and yet there are still Vulcans who very much believe that Starfleet is not a worthwhile path for Vulcans to take. There are still isolationist Vulcans in a way.
Yeah.
To be fair, you don't. I haven't watched a lot of Star Trek, but so I'm coming from my perspective. It doesn't seem like you get a lot of Vulcans who are in Starfleet and spend a lot of time going back to Vulcan with any amount of real purpose. Like if you are a Vulcan and you join Starfleet, that seems to become purpose.
Sure.
And so like I get how there's an idea of like all the Vulcans that leave Starfleet generally don't come back.
Sure.
It doesn't seem like it comes up a lot. And Spock seems to be a person who's trying to, just like his genealogy, ride the line between two.
Right. So it's the fact that he's engaged to Pring that is the real issue here, because it's forcing him to slingshot back and forth.
Right. And like that seems, I can see how you create this idea for Vulcans of that seems more unreliable and shameful and wishy-washy than committing to either path.
Yeah.
Like, you want to be married to a Vulcan and be on Vulcan, then you do that. You want to be in Starfleet, then you do that.
Yeah.
You don't get to have it both ways. Like they very much seem like of a mindset that's how they believe things should be. Like, you know, they might not like when Vulcans join Starfleet, but they respect the commitment to it. And like Spock seems wishy-washy, I think.
Speaking, you know what, like, to Pring, a good actor, the character she's kind of sucks. I do like that she's like, after everything we've been through, Spock, you still don't trust me? You couldn't tell me you were going through this? Like, I agree with her. And like, he is gone for months at a time, and I'm like, you are not a great partner. Like, I think that is true.
Yes, I think that part is true. I think that this is a very good, like, they're both right and they're both wrong.
Yeah.
Because you see the moment earlier in the episode where Spock is going to tell her, and what she says that makes him not, because of how her mom is being, and that he isn't wrong, especially considering her full Vulcanism, to decide that it's better to not force her to lie in the scenario. But it's more about like the distrust and the repeated, like if this was the one time where he did something like this on the sly, I don't think it would hit to Pring as hard. But it's that kind of deceptiveness, about it, and like, and obviously like the love triangle stuff. You know, she watches Chapel like walk around the corner with him, and she's like, "Oh, don't like that."
This is their engagement dinner.
Yeah.
Come on.
But I think they do a good job of like, when he makes the argument of like, these are the reasons I didn't tell you, I'm like, those are very valid reasons. Like, that's very much from his perspective, like that you can see where that's right. And you can also see from her perspective where like, she's totally right to call him out on not trusting her. And like both sides have their reasons and they make sense.
And that's why they should break up. And this is a new timeline where they never get back together, and him and Chapel live happily ever after. Kelvin, too. It's okay.
I did not expect them to put Spock and Chapel together ever. And to be fair, like, they might not. Like, the next episode, it just might be that was Chapel talks about in the first season how she's really bad at relationships. She could just revert into that and just kind of push away from Spock after this moment.
I don't think that this is the kind of thing they're going to do, like next episode, undo or walk back. I think they're going to let this breathe out for a bit. I think that's part of the point of going for it. The way they did Why We End on a Kiss between them is that like, this is going to be a moment in their lives. Like this is now new foundational information about why their relationship is what it is down the road.
Ooh, are they going to keep it a secret?
And I think that's really cool. Because like, you can have these kinds of things be in the story, and I don't think it necessarily has to be canon breaking to allow this relationship to exist for its moment in time, and that we as fans who are clearly enjoying and engaging with the chemistry of these fantastic actors playing these characters off of each other who want to be with each other, we get to enjoy it, even though we'll know it won't last forever, because a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts.
It's true. Vision, every word.
There you go. We get to look at Pike's bathroom, just like his quarters. It's beautiful.
Sure.
I don't remember a single detail.
I was thinking about this a lot. And now, to be fair, bathrooms are actually something that we've seen in Star Trek Next Generation quite a bit. We've seen baths, we've seen sonic showers, we've seen sinks. We've never seen a toilet. And I was looking, I was looking when Ethan Peck goes into Pike's bathroom, which looks like something out of a fancy restaurant with the wood paneling and the lights.
See, Brandon, that's why I didn't think it was a bathroom, because it was huge.
Yeah, it's a really nice bathroom, and we see the sink, but there's doors. There's like doors here on the side. I'm like, that's where the toilet is. That's where the toilet is.
Secret, everybody poops right out into space, right in the space.
We're gonna open that, and that's where the toilet is. I by the way, sonic showers are a thing in Star Trek. They don't use water for showers anymore. However, there are still baths. Find that interesting.
Sonic baths.
That came up in episode 3 when Kirk brought it up to La'an.
Yeah, Voyager had bathtubs, and they still fill it with water, but they also have sonic showers, and I always thought that was interesting.
Now, granted, when you said that, like, I thought that when he was talking about sonic showers, that was supposed to be like, yeah, that's the shitty timeline thing. Like, you don't have water in your showers anymore. You get showered by air. And I was like, oh man, that is dark. And now you're like, no, that's just Star Trek.
No, that's just Star Trek. Sonic showers. I believe we've seen a sonic shower work in, I think, Voyager. It's what it does is it vibrates the gunk off of you.
It's like frequency. Yeah, it's frequencies.
Yeah, it like vibrates the gunk off of you, and you become clean that way.
Yeah, it sounds so unsatisfying.
It's like you know those things you put your cell phones in to like stand. Yeah. It's like that, but like you stand in a thing.
That sounds so unsatisfying.
Yeah, I agree. I love
water. Far less wasteful.
I love water.
Far less wasteful for sure, but like, dang.
I don't want to get vibrated clean. That sounds awful.
Now I say that, but I seem to recall the Cerritos, which is the lower deck ship, has a communal shower, and I believe it was using water.
Well, they're lower.
Well, that's their lower decks.
They're lower class.
They can't afford sonic showers,
which means they get better showers. They just have to do it with everybody.
Yeah.
They get more wasteful showers.
Bro, let me tell you, if I was in that future, I want to shower with a bunch of other people if it meant I used water instead of getting vibrated.
Can you imagine it's like 4 of us? It's like, yeah.
You would never know the difference, right? Because it's been hundreds of years since the sonic shower was invented.
You would be birthed into the vibration.
So,
oh my god! Wait, when you're born, a little guy's vibrating the gunk off you. I want
this to be a lower decks episode where like one of them moves up the ranks and they get their own like private quarters and everything, and they encounter the sonic shower and they experience it. They're like, "This is terrible." Where's the water?
Where's the water?
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay. I think that's it.
You know what that is? That's another great episode of Star Trek.
A really great episode.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Hopefully next season's episode 5 is just as fun.
Gotta be Spock, gotta be Church.
I'll put it this way. I was last week, I was like, man, I'm enjoying Strange New Worlds, but I don't think it's going to be in my top 15 this year, and that's okay. It was last year, and that's all right. And then this episode comes out, and I'm like, I don't know.
We'll see.
Maybe we're in the running.
The rest of the season, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you this: if the Lower Deck Strange New Worlds crossover is as good as I really want it to be, it will most likely end up in my top 15 again.
It's okay. I know that's not going to hit as hard for me as it will for you.
Oh, for sure. That's going to be a really interesting episode to discuss here because you guys don't watch Lower Deck, so it will.
Here's what we'll do. Are those episodes 20 minutes long?
Yeah.
Lower Decks. Okay, well, let's watch the first episode. Just the first episode. Okay, let's do that. I think I can boilerplate. I can get that one done for that crossover. So at least we have some context.
Yeah, that way you'll be introduced to Boimler and Mariner, who are the two characters, Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome.
There you go.
Sure,
love it.
Okay.
Wait. What? No, you keep going. Sorry, that was on me. Wait.
All right, so that's that. That's another episode of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds in the databanks for you guys to check out. The next episode will be out, and we'll talk about that one as well. And then after that is the Lower Decks crossover. So 2 more episodes till we get there.
Excited, just can't hide it.
Cool. So that's Fake Nerds Watch, guys. There's plenty more Fake Nerds Watch. If you like this video, subscribe to this channel. There's of course the audio feed. If you're listening to this, make sure to subscribe on all the podcatchers of choice. But there's other Fake Nerds Watch series that you can check out, such as Secret Invasion. We have just decided we will probably come back to Secret Invasion at the end of the series, so stay tuned. And that's probably going to gives you an idea of how we're feeling about that show at this moment in time. Caesar. Is that Caesar? Is it Thomas Caesar?
Thomas Caesar.
Stay tuned for that final episode to show up. Of course, only 5 more episodes of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds to go, and then we'll see where we go from there. So that's that. Of course, there's other shows on this channel: Basement Arcade, which are video games Let's Play series; Basement Arcade Pause Menu, a video game discussion series. New episode out now, where you guys discussed your quarterly events, some news, and some games that you're playing. Correct?
That is true. Check it out.
Of course, there's Conversation, which is a show that I do where I talk to other podcasters. That's only on audio, so if you're listening to the audio, please subscribe to that show and enjoy it. A new episode out where I talk to Rachel Strange, who's become a good friend of mine, of the Narrative Labyrinth podcast. Coming up is D and Dark, the cast of D and Dark. If you've been listening to or watching to the main show, we've been showcasing D and Dark for about 30 weeks now. So the cast of that will join me on Conversation. There's, of course, Animation Station, Fake Nerd Book Club, and Miscellaneous, all of which have new shows coming. They are coming. It's just been a little slow getting them going. And The Real Score, once again, new shows are coming. Or, of course, you can check out the Mothership Show, the main show, the Fake Nerd Podcast, which goes live every Sunday morning. We recently rebooted as every Sunday morning, where we discuss some news and the news of the week, and of course what we do. As far as reviews, that has been moved out of the show, and coming up with Cinephiles for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 is the one that we know for sure is in the pipeline. So stay tuned for that. You can also check out our Patreon and our TeePublic if you'd like to support us financially, or you can find us on our website, where all the links that I've told you about, all the links that I've just said, those are all there on our website at fakenerdpodcast.com. You can find our socials, Fake Nerd Podcast on all the socials. I'm at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find me writing for CBR.com, AtomicGeekdom.com, and KaijuRamenMedia.com, where I'm also the editor. And I just put up a Skull Island anime review. Please check it out. Worked really hard on it. Sparkz?
You can find me reminding you that if I did my job correctly, then at the beginning of this, there should have been a disclaimer about the writer's strikes and the actor strikes, and that we are in full support of what they're doing. And the links for that should be below. So go, do what you got to do to support, because we're in full support, even as we are reviewing content like this. At Sparkz Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZB.
And Ryan?
Hey, DJ Tony Snark 616.
All right, guys, like this video, subscribe to this channel, subscribe on all your podcatchers of choice if you're listening to the audio. Until next time we see us, guys, live long and prosper.
Hey.